Welcome back to Even Tacos Fall Apart, the podcast where we dive deep into the messy and sometimes challenging aspects of life, all with a sprinkle of humor and a dash of resilience. I'm MommaFoxFire, and I am thrilled to have you join me for another candid conversation. Today's episode is one that hits close to home for myself, and I am sure also for many of you listening today, and that's stress management. Who hasn't felt the weight of the world on their shoulders at some point? I know I have, whether it's work, family, or just life throwing curveballs like it loves to do. Stress is that uninvited guest that shows up more often than we'd like. But fear not, because we've got an incredible guest conversation today who's here to share insights, wisdom, and a few laughs about navigating the tricky terrain of stress. You might want to grab your favorite beverage, find you a comfy spot, and get ready for a conversation that's as real as it gets. Our guest today is Tina Baxter. She's a nurse and an entrepreneur, and she's here to unravel the mysteries of stress management with us. We'll be exploring the stigma around stress, discussing the impact the pandemic really had on our well-being, and redefining what productivity truly means. Before we dive into the interview, I've got a little surprise for you. Tina has graciously offered a free gift to our listeners. It's an e-workbook titled Embracing the Wonderful You. Stick around to the end and I'll share the details of how you can snag your copy with a special promo code. So whether you're sipping your morning coffee, commuting to work, cooking dinner, or just taking a breather, get ready to join Tina and me on this journey of self-discovery, laughter, and hopefully a few aha moments. Without further ado, let's jump into this episode on stress management, because even tacos fall apart, and we still love them, and I still love you. Hello. Welcome to a Mental Health Wednesday today. I'm so used to saying Mental Health Monday that I just almost said it, but we've got it on a Wednesday today, which is wonderful. So I am super excited for the topic tonight. It's very timely for myself personally, so I'm looking forward to talking about it. We're going to be talking about stress management with our guest, Tina Baxter. So Tina, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So a little bit about Tina. Tina is an advanced practice registered nurse and board certified gerontological nurse practitioner through the American Nurse Credentialing Center, who resides in Anderson, Indiana. She has been a registered nurse for over 20 years and a nurse practitioner for 14 years. She's the owner of Baxter Professional Services, LLC, a consulting firm providing legal nurse consulting services for attorneys and insurance professionals, wellness and chronic disease management coaching, and customized educational and operational resources to healthcare organizations. Tina is the founder of the Nurse Shark Academy, where she coaches nurses to launch and scale their businesses, and the host of the Nurse Shark Academy show. She's a public speaker and has spoken on numerous topics on a national level, and is a contributor to articles on electronic and print media such as Entrepreneur.com, The Minority Nurse, Authority Magazine, Medium, LinkedIn, and a guest on numerous podcasts, including Even Tacos Fall Apart. So I've got some socials if you guys are looking to connect with Tina. I've got her website, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. If you're looking to connect with her other ways, I've got her link tree as well. So I'm going to post those in chat now. And feel free to connect with her. Again, our topic is stress management. I do have a question queue open, so if you have a question, make sure to pop it into the chat and we will get it going. So thank you guys for being here, and we're going to kind of jump right in with our first question, which is just what led you to become a nurse?
Well, honestly, I didn't start out wanting to be a nurse. I started out wanting to be a physician. And I was in school getting my degree in biology, and as I got closer to the time, I'd spent 2 weeks with my cousin, who's a wonderful OBGYN, great doctor, but I saw how he lived. He had all the toys, but could never play with them.
Oh, yeah.
Things like that, but could never get away to do any of it. And I thought, I don't want to live like that. And so I was in an existential crisis at the moment, and I didn't know what I was going to do. So I got a job working in a nursing home as a certified nursing assistant because they paid you to train you. And I was taking a break from college trying to figure this out after spending 5 years at a very expensive private college on my parents' dime. And so I got that job and I saw what the nurses did and I thought, I can do that. And if I want to go to medical school later. I can do that too.
Mm-hmm.
So I called up the university and said, let me into your nursing program. Now, I had no idea how hard it was to get a nursing school or any of that. This is a person who, by the way, sat for the MCAT twice. So I was really on the way to going to medical school, but just could not do it. Um, and so I I called them up and said, hey, let me in. I've got my almost finished my degree in biology and I have two minors, let me into your school. And they said, well, first you have to get into the university, then we'll accept you into the School of Nursing. So I came in as a transfer student 2 weeks before the semester started and got into nursing school as a sophomore, even though I was already a fifth year senior because I was changing majors, but I did finish my biology degree. I don't leave stuff undone. And so, because I was 2 classes away from being done.
Oh yeah, mine as well.
So, yeah, so I transferred schools because my lease was up on my apartment. I didn't know what I was going to do. Newly engaged, and so all this happened, and so I just said, "Let me in." So that's sort of how I got into nursing. And when I sat there in my first class, I remember thinking, "I found my tribe. This is where I should be. This is what I was looking for all along." Because I didn't go into medicine because I felt like then that they kind of sucked the joy out of it, right? It just wasn't fun anymore. And I thought it was going to be fun because background, worked in the lab, interned in the summers, working in labs and going to autopsies at the medical center. So I was into all that stuff, right? So I knew that was my path. And then when I got down to it, I realized I don't want to do this. And I chose nursing, and it's been the best decision I've ever made as far as career.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's hard if you look at someone's life and kind of evaluate, well, are they enjoying what they're doing? And the answer is no. It kind of turns you off from whatever they're doing,
Yeah, I mean, he enjoyed what he did, but I'm like, first of all, he was OB, and I am not an OB person. I'm gerontology for a reason. And I just knew I did not have the patience to work in OB. I'm like, if you're going to call and wake me up at 3 a.m. to come to the hospital to deliver a baby, you better be having a baby. Braxton Hicks with me. So I did this for 2 weeks with him, and I just was so sleep deprived. I'm like, there's no way I could do this. And I hate to tell you, my OB friends and my midwife friends, I find it kind of boring. Like, oh, every birth is different. I said, no, it's not unless something exciting happens, and you don't want something exciting to happen.
right, yeah.
But, they could probably say that about gerontology, but I'm like, no, something exciting happens every day in gerontology.
Yeah. So with what you do now, what are your kind of biggest joys, and what are some of the biggest challenges that you face in what you do?
I think one of my biggest joys is finally getting the patient to a place where they're able to manage their life. I'm working in psychiatry right now, so I was a psych nurse for years, went back, became a nurse practitioner in gerontology. Now I'm kind of subspecializing in geropsychiatry. And what I like to see is them get control of their life again and help them take ownership of their life. So many times life just happens to people, right? And we all get thrown curves. Things happen, but it's how you respond that makes the difference. And so because I work with people with chronic mental illness like bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, I like to see them be able to lead a productive life. And if we can get them to get their meds under control, get their symptoms managed, they can live a wonderful life. And, the person sitting next to you may have schizophrenia and you would never know it. Why? Because they're on their medication, they're in their therapies, they're doing it well, they're managing their illness, and they are staying on top of their symptoms. I like to see that. I really like to see that. So.
Yeah, that's something that if you can just watch the change in someone from starting to work with them and then where they wind up, that's got to be really fulfilling.
Yes. And there's a lot of times, because I work with older adults, there's a lot of built up trauma that people have never addressed. And so when I get to someone who may have dementia or some sort of mental decline, so mild cognitive impairment, some of those things start to come back up because they're not able to suppress them anymore.
Yeah.
So I had a lady in assisted living that became really depressed, and she was just crying and upset. We couldn't figure out what was going on. And she finally had said that her brother had, I need to put a trigger warning here, that her brother had molested her, and he lived a great life, was very rich, and she struggled all of her life. And so we had to have that conversation about having to let that go. I'm like, he's never going to apologize. You got to accept that. He's never going to apologize. He may not even think to apologize, but you have to forgive him and forgive yourself for holding on to this whole time and letting him have that power over you. And having that discussion and working with her through that process, that grieving process. We had her write a letter to him. We got her on some medication as well. She was able to come back out of her depression and go on and live her life. And so those types of things that with older adults, I really like to see addressing those things, because sometimes they're forgotten,
Yeah.
People tell them, get over it. That happened when you were a kid. You're 70 now, get over it. Why does that still bother you? Well, if you've never dealt with that and you carry that your whole life, it manifests itself in other ways.
Yeah. My grandmother has dementia, and we have a home health nurse that goes there a couple times a week. So she gets a daily visit from either my dad or myself or my sister. And then we also have a home health nurse who comes a couple of times a week. And it's amazing. Even with us going over there every day, it's amazing the difference that adding another person has made in her, because she's able to really connect with her, and she spends a couple of hours with her during the week. And it's like whenever I go visit with grandma, sometimes she's on the wrong timeline, and that's okay. You just kind of meet her where she is. But she always remembers that Kat is supposed to come tomorrow, or Kat said she's going to come by later, or Kat said this, or Kat said that. And oh, isn't she just a lovely girl? And it's really sweet to see that connection that she's formed, even though it's hard for her to make new connections sometimes. And so it's really neat, the impact that nurses have on especially someone with dementia or something like that is really a lot bigger than I think many people even think about. It doesn't even cross their mind how big of a difference people like you make to people like that.
Well, oftentimes we kind of become surrogate family, because if it's particularly if they're in a long-term care facility.
Yeah.
Because they see us more often than they see family a lot of
right.
times. Even though family can be there every day, the staff's there 24/7. So we get to see their ups and downs, and sometimes they're not so good moods.
Yeah.
And it can, for a family that's been away for a while, it can be a little shocking when they come in and see the changes that happen. But for us, because we're there every day, we kind of know when they're having a mood. Okay, well, we'll wait. Margaret's not happy today. We'll come back a couple hours. She'll be all right.
Yeah.
We'll try again. But families can sometimes get really frustrated with that process, and it can add a lot of stress onto the family, particularly if you're the caregiver, of having to tell someone the same thing every day, every hour, as their dementia progresses. So having gone through that with my dad, and having listened to him tell me the same story 3 times on the phone, because he forgot he just told me, was a little tough, a little heartbreaking. But I also cherish the fact that he had something that he wanted to share with me.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be present to listen to what he had to share.
Yeah. It's really neat. I mean, dementia is not neat, but I like to find the good in as many situations as I can. And so it has been nice, because if I go to grandma's house and her mom is alive in her timeline currently, she's talking about her mom. I haven't heard my grandma talk about her mom in decades. I mean, and even then it wasn't ever these stories that I get to hear now. So it's been pretty neat to hear them, but you're right. I have to coach my kids on, I know grandma just said that. It's fine. Let her say it again. What's the harm in that? So yeah, it's tough, but nurses really do make a huge difference. Now, you kind of opened by saying you saw someone who didn't get to play with the toys that they had. And now we know that you love what you do and you find it really fulfilling. So what do you enjoy when you're not working? Do you get to play with the toys that you have?
I really enjoy reading. That's one of my favorite things. Always since I was probably 4 years old. Yes, I was one of those precocious kids. And I enjoy movies and art and things. I got tickets for the local symphony this coming weekend. So I love getting out to do things like that kind of gives my brain a break from all the other stuff that I do. And then I make sure I get my massages in. So I've got one scheduled for this Saturday.
I love it. I love that. Yeah, look, massages are nice. So you read a lot. What kinds of books do you like to read? Any recommendations for a fellow reader?
Well, it depends on my mood. So I read a lot of self-development, personal development type books as well. But I also like to read just straight up, ever since I was a kid, Harlequin romance. If it's a good story, because I can read it in one night. This is the reason why. I can read it in one night and I can put it down and go to bed. I love Stuart Woods.
Okay.
So I'll read a lot of his books, but it just depends on what strikes my fancy, because I like science fiction and I like adventure and historical romance, and so I really like all that kind of stuff. So, and a big Game of Thrones, Bridgerton fan, Marvel comics. That's my jam. I'm a nerd.
So if you like historical fiction, romance-y, and you're a nurse, I've got to find this book that I just finished reading about the polio epidemic. Okay, hold on. I just finished, now I have to look and see. Oh, The Stolen Marriage. Was that the one? I think, hold on, let me click into this and just see. Because if this is the one that I'm thinking of, yes, Tess DeMillo. Yes. Okay. The Stolen Marriage by Diane Chamberlain is wonderful. I'm on Goodreads. I gave it 5 stars and reviewed it. So if you want to see a review of it without spoilers, you're welcome to go and see that. But it's got romance, it's got nursing, it's got historical fiction. It's fantastic. Really, really good read. So highly recommend that one.
I remember that because I just finished a vampire novel. It's historical. That it's the Vampire of Los Novetos.
Oh.
It was really good. And I just picked up, I was in Walmart getting my oil change, and I said, oh, let me hop over to the book section. And I saw it, and I thought, vampire? Historical fiction? I'm there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cultural references. So yeah, it was a really great book, and I've learned a lot about things that happened historically between Mexico and United States from years ago, and why that there's still a lot of tension. You know? You're from Texas, you know.
Oh yeah, yep, most definitely.
All about the Rio Grande and all of that, and so it was interesting. So it's about a rancher and his family, and there's a bunch of ranchers down there on the Mexico side, and they're worried about the Anglos coming to steal their ranches, and then this mysterious creature pops up. So there you go.
All right. Now, how the vampires of, and then how do you spell the rest of it?
Ostowato. I have to look at.
Uh-oh. Did I lose connection? Hopefully not. Oh. I heard you for a second again.
Okay, we're back.
There you go. That's okay.
I don't know what happened.
I don't either. That's all right. We're back now, so that's what matters.
Well, Muertos. Muertos.
Oh, okay. All right.
I think that's it.
Gotcha.
I think that was the name of it. But it was a book.
Okay, perfect.
Like
yep. Well, I'll have to find that one and add it. For sure, because that sounds interesting.
Yeah, it was really good. Find it at Walmart. There you go. That's where I found it.
Yep. I do a lot of reading on my Kindle, so
I do too.
And I need to see. I think there's a way to connect it to my local library and like download stuff from the library straight to the Kindle, but I haven't figured that out yet. But I'll get there. Do you have a serial killer or a true crime story that fascinates you?
Actually, what really interests me was a story about Jim Jones.
Oh yeah.
Not really a serial killer per se, but what I found fascinating, and again, this goes back to my psych background, what I find fascinating was how he was able to get these people to do what he wanted. He was very charismatic, and he started out by meeting them where they had a need. People were disenfranchised.
Yep.
And so he brought together this multicultural group of people and kind of, loved on them, basically. And then it kind of turned as he got into drugs and other things and got more and more bizarre. But to find out his backstory and how he grew up and all this kind of stuff, that was interesting. And then I spent one day, ended up watching, I don't know, I was home from work and I saw 3 things on cults and 3 docuseries on serial killers. And then I watched 3 series on mob bosses. And I was like, I've got to stop watching this stuff. It's all dark. But I found that really interesting about how people got so caught up that they couldn't get away. And so that whole thing of being caught up in that cult and understanding the mentality that went along with it and how so easily it is to be seduced by those things when you're hurting and you're looking for someone to come save you.
Yeah, absolutely. Cults are fascinating. And not that this is some sort of book podcast, because it's really not. But if you like cults and you like reading, there's another really good one that I just read recently called After the Fire. And I'm looking up who that's by. It's by Will Hill. And it's based on the Branch Davidian, which is here in Texas. It's based on that story. Yeah, but it's fictionalized, but it is a wonderful book told from the viewpoint of one of the minor children who survived. And so it's phenomenal. I won't. It's another one that I gave 5 stars, and I know I'm recommending all these ones that I gave 5 stars to, but I don't give a lot of books 5 stars. So you're connecting to two really good ones there.
All right. Yeah, I'll take a look.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm into. Of course, I love, like I said, science fiction. So
yeah, that's something that cults and science fiction, they kind of go hand in hand a little bit, because it's just the stories that are woven around sci-fi and the stories that people who lead and create these cults wind up telling are sometimes a little bit sci-fi-y.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to switch to our topic tonight, which is stress management, and that's a very broad field. So can you share a personal story or a case where effective stress management really made a significant positive impact on someone's life?
I'll tell you about a young man that I had. He was about 10 years old. And this is outside of my psychiatric practice. So I had him come in for some stress management lessons because he was struggling in school with anxiety, particularly around tests and things like that. And so after, we did a little assessment, I worked with him on identifying in his body when he was feeling the stress and then how to regulate his own emotions. So that's what we were working on. And so I took him through some body exercises and some progressive muscle relaxation and guided imagery type thing. And we kind of went through some of that. And I taught him to do this on his own and to find that one place where he felt safe and happy that he can go back to when he was feeling stressed, and then use his breathing techniques to help him get out of it. So he ended up doing very well. And this is a young man who, by the way, was working with a therapist through the school. And as I explained to Mom, I don't replace your therapist. You want that, you have to go to the office down in Indy, right? But what I do is I teach you those techniques that we know as nurses. We've known those things on how to do these things for yourself. And so that's what I do on the wellness side. So all of it's really wellness based and not necessarily medical management based, because I don't do that on the wellness space. And so we kind of went through that, and I gave him some aromatherapy oils too to help him, because I say attach to the scent, put it in your memory, because even when you smell that scent and you take the time to smell it, it's going to take you back to that happy memory that you have. Attach it to that scent. So we did some work on stuff like that, and he ended up doing very well. And so I was very, very pleased to work with him. And then I had a group of older adults that I was teaching in a chronic disease management course. And I had someone with arthritis, and she said, "I'm just so exhausted. I can't get all my work done." Da, 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 da. And I said, "Well, why don't we break it up into chunks? If you got to do the dishes, get the water running, get the dishes in the water, sit down and rest, let them soak for a little bit, then get up and wash them, rinse them, and put them in the rack and let them dry, sit down and rest for a little while, then come back and then put them away." Instead of trying to do everything all at once, which is what she was doing, I said, break it up into manageable chunks. And she's like, no one ever explained it to me so easily. I said, it's you have to adjust to where you are with your body right now, right? There are things you can do to help yourself and improve your health, like exercise and things like that. But there comes a point where we just get older, and we have to adjust to that. Am I saying that you need to sit down somewhere and never move and just give up and die? No, not at all. What I'm saying is that you have to make peace with the new reality that you're in. And if you don't, then that's where you're going to hit all those stressors, right? We see that with celebrities that because they're getting older and they don't want to get old, they want to stay young. You can see the stress in their face because they're trying all these different gimmicks and techniques and things like that. But you notice that the celebrities that age gracefully, they look younger and they're a lot happier. You don't see that stress. And so I think that there is a place for us to accept where we are in our life. This is a new stage, you can't fight that. It happens. It's inevitable. It happens to everyone. We get older. What's the alternative? We die. And so that's what I tell them. I say, you have to reframe it. And so, you get the privilege of getting older, and you gain the wisdom to pass on to someone else who's younger. And so in that phase of life, you have to accept where you are.
Yeah. Stress definitely changes as you get older. Like, it's different things. First of all, different things stress you out, right? You were just talking about the 10-year-old who was stressed about testing in school. Well, that obviously goes away once you're no longer testing and in school. But then you have the stress of having something like arthritis. And I had carpal tunnel syndrome that I actually had to have surgery on both hands for. And that was stressful. Like, it added stress to my day because I would wake up, both of my hands would be numb. These 3 fingers and half of this finger were completely numb every morning on both hands when I woke up. And then throughout the day, it was almost like, well, I wish they were still numb because now my whole hands hurt. Like, I can feel it. And that stress and that pain really caused or that pain and the loss of sensation and the loss of just the flexibility in my hands, my grip strength went away. It was stressful. And so it's not just, oh, well, I'm stressed about something that's happening. It's like your body can cause a little bit of stress as you get older too. And then you're stressing in your mind about what's happening in your body, or vice versa. You know, your body can kind of manifest that stress a little bit too, right?
Exactly. And so, my mom always said, wait till you turn 30 and things just start falling apart on you. And it's so funny because as I got older, I've noticed that, things were not as easy. I was just exercising before we got on this podcast, and I got on the floor and I said, oh my gosh, I'm on the floor now. Now I got to get up off the floor, right? Because I haven't done a lot of floor work in a long time, but I wanted to improve my flexibility. Mm-hmm. That included me getting on the floor. So there are things that you can do to manage your stress. My mother-in-law goes for a walk at least 3 times a week. So she makes sure she keeps up with her walking to keep up her strength and things like that. So there are things that we can do to help manage that stress. And so at every stage of life, you're going to have stress. Mm-hmm. With older adults, a lot of times it's that loss of loved ones, loss of independence, loss of mobility, loss of job. You retire, then what do? I had a gentleman that became very depressed. He was a college professor, and he retired, and he had a whole list of things that he wanted to do in his retirement. He completed them all in 6 months, and he's like, now what? And so I said, well, what would you like to do? He said, well, I kind of miss being at the university. I said, well, do you want to go back and guest lecture, teach? He said, oh, no, I don't want to do that. He just likes being around people and having conversations. So I said, well, why don't you start a book club or a lecture series right here at the YW, this is where I met him, where you are. Pardon me.
Bless you.
Sorry. Thank you. And so he's like, I never thought of that. I said, well, yeah, talk to them. I bet they'll love to have it. Some other programming. I said, and then you can get a bunch of people your age together and y'all can have good conversations. And, one person can get up and tell about what they know and lecture on what they know. And that helps keep you guys sharp and gives you something to do. That's what I find a lot of times people don't have is something to do. People who have a mental disability or a physical disability, oftentimes it's hard for them to get out and do things. And so I notice the ones that don't have a reason to get up in the morning struggle that much harder. That inactivity in and of itself is a stressor. Mm-hmm. And so I tell them, try to do one thing. If it's getting up and taking a shower, do the one thing. The next day we're going to add something else. Let's add in, okay, you've gotten your shower, you're now ready to go out to the mailbox. Okay, great, we've done that. Let's add another thing. How about we take a walk around the block? How about we go down to the library and get a book? So anything to get you up and moving and have a purpose to get up so that you aren't stressing, because that inactivity is a stressor all by itself. A lot of older adults feel like they don't want to be a burden to their family. Mm-hmm. Right? I don't want to be a burden. I hear that all the time. And the family's like, but you're my mom, you're my grandma, you're not going to be a burden. We love you. But it's that loss of independence. And so when I explain that to families, I said, you have to be a little bit gracious with them. They've lived their entire lives or most of their lives as an adult. Mm-hmm. They get to go when they want to go, work when they want to work, pay for whatever they want to pay for, and now you're telling them they can't drive their car, they have to live with a bunch of strangers they don't know. You're taking away the home that they lived in for the last 30, 40, 50 years, and they're downsizing. I think I would be a little upset too, don't you?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And so having that conversation of, yes, those are some losses that you may have, but this everyday stress that we have, it comes when you're feeling it come on. Take that time. I think we missed being in the moment a lot of times. The world moves really fast, right? We get so much stuff thrown at us. I mean, I can't tell you the number of times I'm looking at my cell phone because some notification came on there and I find out, oh, so-and-so died, this big celebrity died, or the stock market has gone down 2 points, or whatever. We get so much information. So how do you take time to unplug and get away from all of that? You have to carve out the time for yourself and put yourself on the schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always have my clients to time block your schedule, and you put me time on it. And me time is not negotiable unless there's an emergency, the house is on fire, a kid loses an eye, birth of a new child, whatever, right? But you put that me time on there. It's so important. And what do I mean by that? I don't care if you just go sip some tea in a corner or you sit in the bathroom and do it. I have a client who told me that she likes to eat in the shower.
All right.
I'm like, oh, okay. I said, whatever floats your boat. I don't think I could. I said, because she was telling me this, and she said, yeah, it just is my safe place. I just, get so relaxed. So I just eat in the shower. And I'm like, you see, I would have the opposite. I said it would make me more anxious and nervous to be in the shower because I think food would get wet, and then I'd have to clean the shower, and it'd be soggy, a mess, and all this stuff would go through my head. That would not be relaxing to me. What's relaxing to me? Getting into the shower and listening to music. Getting into the shower and maybe using an aromatherapy balm in there. Getting into the shower and doing a facial scrub and getting to scrub my face. Those types of things, that's relaxing to me. So find the thing that works for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's different for everybody. Like that would definitely not work for me. But if it works for them, then that's great. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. If it works for you, I said, go for it.
Yep. As long as you're not harming yourself or harming someone else, then
there you go.
Go for it.
I'd much rather sit under a tree or up in a tree, but that's just me. That was my pastime as a kid, to climb the tree and read a book.
Yeah, there you go. We used to climb the tree at my grandma's house and go up on the roof. And then get in trouble for being on the roof. But, it is what it is. I couldn't get in the shower habit. My landlord would hate me. Why on earth did you turn the water heater up so high? I like my shower raw and fresh. Oh, no, growling. No.
No. I didn't ask her what she was eating in the shower.
Yeah. Yep. Listen, whatever. And that's fine. Maybe she didn't even turn the water on. Maybe she just liked to be in the shower, Yeah.
I just like whatever, works for you. I mean, I had a client at one time that because of his severe OCD really never left his bathroom. So his parents had moved the microwave into the bathroom. And he had a TV in the bathroom, and he basically lived in his bathroom because the grooming rituals took so long to get him out of the bathroom. If he messed up, he had to start all over again. So he just lived in the bathroom.
Yeah.
I mean, sad, but
but what if it works?
It worked for him because that's how he could function and manage his life. He had his groceries delivered, so it worked out.
Yep, absolutely. So we talked a little bit about kind of chronic diseases. Can you share the connection between chronic diseases and stress a little more succinctly than I was just rambling about?
Well, our stress can show up in multiple ways. You can have the crying and the anger and the irritability, right? The emotional stuff. But you can also feel it in your body. So it can come into backaches and muscle aches and pain. People with chronic pain, oftentimes, if they're stressed out, their pain is even worse. It can also manifest itself into addiction and addictive behaviors. People will self-medicate with alcohol or drugs or whatever, food even, to manage that pain. And because of the stress that's in our body, it causes more inflammation in your system, which puts you predisposed to things like obesity and heart disease and high blood pressure. So all these things can tie into one another. And I always tell people, you really can't separate the mind and the body, right? You're one person, you work in concert. So if something is upsetting you emotionally, oftentimes your first clue may actually be physical. You get that nausea in your stomach, right? Or you get a headache, or you just, you feel tense in your muscles. I always know when I have a lot of stress because I start grinding my teeth. And so I'll grind my teeth and I'll have tension in my neck. And then my massage therapist is like, oh, why are you so tight? I said, oh, it's been a stressful week, right? Because I know this is where I hold my attention, because I know that when I start to feel that, then I can take on, okay, I've got to release the stress. What am I stressed about? Find out what it is. Is this something that's one true actually happening, or is it something that I imagine? Because a lot of times our stressors are things that we think could happen. This could possibly happen. This leads to anxiety. We think that the bad things may happen and come get us. Whereas sometimes it is actually happening. When I had to drive from Indiana to Georgia, it was stressful in that there's a lot of traffic. I had to keep an eye on things. I was carrying precious cargo, namely my mom and my husband. So, I wanted to be careful and safe driving. And so that was a stress, right? And so I could recognize, okay, this is what's causing me stress in that moment. But a lot of times we carry in that emotional baggage that we don't recognize as causing us stress. So,
Yeah.
and then there's other things like the lack of sleep that can happen because we're stressed. Our mind won't slow down because we're anxious and we're stressed. And so then now we're not getting our sleep.
Yeah, that's something I was telling you before we even started, that I had a doctor's appointment this morning, and we had talked about stress and the fact that, I'm highly stressed. And she's like, well, can you get any more sleep? And I was like, when? Well, can you just, have some less stressful things throughout your day? I'm like, no. I'm a single mom and I work really hard to be able to provide for my kids. And it's like, those are things that aren't necessarily really in my control, but I do what I can. And my body does definitely manifest. It hasn't in a while done this, but when I was married, and I'm now divorced, so this is very telling, but I used to get these bumps around my ring finger. They were just little bumps, and they looked like little pimples, but they weren't like poppable. It was like tiny warts, but they would come and go. And so if I had been super stressed, I would get these bumps on my fingers and my hand, starting kind of around my ring finger and spreading out, which sounds crazy, right? Like that sounds, because I wore other stuff, but it was always around my wedding ring that it would start. And my marriage was a real point of stress for me and a point of harm at some points. And so it's incredible how your body can just take that and be like, yeah, here's a real representation of that for you. But yeah, I mean, if it's definitely something that sometimes it's hard if you can't control the stress that you have in your life. So what are some things or techniques or practices that people can incorporate into their daily lives to reduce either your response to stress or reduce your stress in general?
Well, I'll give you a really good example. What happened in 9/11, after 9/11, I was in New York and working with the Red Cross, and we had a case of this family where the husband was supposed to be at the Twin Towers, but he was caught in traffic and didn't make it. But because the bridge was closed, he had to walk back home. He lived in Long Island, so he had to walk home. So for hours, the wife, who was very pregnant at the time, didn't know if he was alive or dead. No phone calls. It was just a big nightmare, right? So he gets home and he finds out that his friends are dead, right? He was supposed to be there. He didn't make it. His friends are dead. So he's very depressed. He takes to bed. Wife, then very pregnant, is like, okay, he's depressed. We need to grieve. So we need to cry. And I need to cry. So I'm watching CNN 24/7 because I've got to cry. And now she's afraid to go out of her home. So, she's having her groceries delivered and everything like that. They have a 4-year-old daughter. 4-year-old daughter watching her family just fall apart, right? So she breaks out in hives. This is all manifested from the stress in the family. And finally, I just had to tell Mom, turn off CNN. You cannot put that into your mind and your thoughts every day. She's like, but I need to cry. I said, you'll cry when you're ready. But your blood pressure is sky high. You're 6 months pregnant. You want to have a healthy baby and a healthy pregnancy, turn off CNN. We have to look at what's causing our stressor. So I'm going to say, look in your day, and maybe there's going to be something that you have to use the magic word, no. I give you permission to use it. I had to do that myself. My husband was going through some health challenges. There was a lot going on. My dad was sick at the time. He was, moving to hospice care. All this stuff was happening, right? And I was on several boards, and I finally just had to say, I've got to let this go. Was it worthwhile? Was it something I loved doing? Yes. But I had to say, I've been on this board for 4 years now. It's time for me to go. I have to step down. My term was over anyway. They just kept me on because I was the nurse. And so I finally had to say no, and it felt good, right? For a minute, it felt guilty, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
We're nurses. Yeah, we don't want to let anybody down. But I realized I had to do that for me, and I had to do it for my business. I had to do it for my family. And that worked out so much better for me. And so sometimes it's looking at those things that maybe, okay, they have to get done, but can you delegate it? Can you outsource it? And you make a hard and fast rule of saying, and usually my rule is I stop working at 9:00. So no matter what's going on, I usually, hey, it's 9:00, time to go home. I'm not going to be here to midnight because I have other things to do in the morning, blah, blah, blah. And so I purposely put that in my schedule and purposely block that time to say 9:00 is when we end work. There's very few exceptions for that unless there's a really big deadline or legal case going on and I've got to push through. But I really honor that because I want to honor time with my family. So I'm going to say, find out if there's things that you can change. Like, find out what's causing you stress, and is it something that you can change? Is it something that you can adapt to? Maybe you have to, get the cereal bowls ready and say, okay, on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you get cereal for breakfast. You don't get a full breakfast. Here's an energy bar. God bless you. Have a great day, because I need some time. Whatever it is that needs to work for you, right? Changing your schedule. Adding the fun into your schedule, go for a spa day. I love them. Highly recommend them. Go get your nails done. Just those little things and just relieve your stress. And my biggest thing is I like to journal and write down things. I write things when I'm upset and I'm mad. I take to the journal, and fortunately, nobody reads them. But I can be kind of saucy in that journal. And I can tell people off in that journal. And then I can say, okay, now I need to repent because of the things I said. And that was mean. And I said, but that's how I felt in the moment. And I said, well, why did that make you feel this way? And is it productive to feel this way? Because I don't want my feelings, right, to rule my life. If we let our feelings rule our life, guess what happens? We become more stressed. You feel it in the moment. And I say, oh, I'm feeling anxiety right now. Why am I anxious? Oh, I'm anxious because I got to make this big trip. I got to give this speech. I got to write this article. I'm anxious because I don't have a deadline. Okay, well, I understand that this is temporary. It's going to go away, and I don't need to dwell on it. It's anxiety because of that. It's okay. I'll get through it because we've done it before. We'll do it again. It'll be fine. And if it doesn't come out perfectly, oh, well, we're human. I remember in the 8th grade, there was in my band room, I played clarinet all through college. So in the 8th grade, in the band room, there was a sign that my teacher put up, and it said, everybody makes mistakes. I've never forgotten that. Because I realized you have to extend some grace to yourself and some grace to other people. And you can sit there and ruminate about the comment that somebody made. And did she just say I was fat? Is that what she was trying to say? You can do that all in your head, right? Or you can say, you know what? Maybe they were having a bad day. Maybe I misunderstood them. Maybe I'm just in my feelings, and that's just how I feel because I'm feeling fat today. So her compliment of, hey, you look great today. Well, does that mean I didn't look great yesterday? And, all those things that we do to ourselves. We need to let that go and just realize, hey, that's just my crazy thinking that's in my thoughts. It doesn't really manifest itself in my reality unless I let it.
Yeah. I played French horn. So I was also a band nerd. But yeah, I mean, everyone does make mistakes, and of course not everything is going to be perfect. I think there's a lot that, especially for single parents, especially for people with high stress jobs that are just stressful in general, always on a deadline. And I'm very specifically talking about my job right now, admittedly, but like always constantly under pressure on a deadline. But you know, you have to kind of put it in perspective. Is anyone going to die? Like, no, you know? And so I have to remind myself that, yeah, while what I do is important and it keeps other people employed and it wins the company money, essentially, money is not tied to someone's life. So,
Right.
but it can really be hard to say no sometimes. But, you know, things like a spa day and journaling, if you're like me, I've talked about this before, but if you're like me and you then go back and read your own journal, you might do what my therapist makes me do, which is write down in your journal and then tear out that page and throw it away or burn it if you need to, safely, of course, over your sink, you know, that kind of thing. But, so you got to find what works for you, because it's different. Just like we were talking about with shower eating, it's different, I think, for every person.
Yeah, find out what works for you. I like to take what I call a thinking day, and I don't do anything. I may lay around and watch TV or watch my favorite shows or find an inspirational movie that I like or something like that. But mainly I just sit around and don't do anything. I think and let my brain kind of rest. And then I'm able to just get up and do more the next day. I just feel so refreshed because I get everybody's deadline, and because I've got so much going on and people are saying, oh, I need this and I want that, and we get phone calls, and I turn the phone off.
Yeah.
Turn the phone off. I am out of the office. I'm gone. So when I purposely did that. I took a vacation around Labor Day, because I was taking my mom to Atlanta and came back. And so I had the rest of the week off. So I only worked 2 days that week. I had the week off from my clinical job. I only worked 2 days a week in my business. And I did it because somebody needed me. It was one of those, oh, okay, I'll help you out type thing. But that Friday, I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I didn't even get dressed. I just took a shower, put on another nightgown. And I just laid around and watched my favorite shows, which is right now is Tiny House Nation.
Oh, yeah.
And, read a book, and that's how I read the book. And, I didn't do much of anything. And I just kind of rested, and I was laid there and thought, and I did a little journaling, and, but I couldn't get my brain to even work that hard. It was like, it was tired. And then the next day I'm like, all right, I'm ready to get back at it again. Let's go.
Yeah.
Because then I have all those ideas pop up, and I get really energized, and it may seem like I'm an extrovert, but I'm really introverted. So I need that time to get away from people and hearing people tell me about their life and their problems, because that's what I do for a living, right? So
recharge a little bit. And I know that we're talking about lifestyle changes, and those can be really hard to make. I mean, like I'm talking about, I can't change my job. I can't change the fact that I'm a single parent. I mean, I could, but I don't know if y'all have tried dating lately.
Actually, no.
So what are some of the common barriers that people might face whenever they're trying to make some of these changes, and how can they work to overcome some of those?
Well, sometimes it's that resistance in yourself, that first resistance of, I have to do things, right? I have this mantra that I say to myself, I'm not going to should on myself today.
Yeah.
Telling me I should do this, I should do that, right? I'm not going to do that today because I need to focus on what's priority. And so everything may be nice to do, but may not be necessary to do, right? So I look at what's necessary first. And then if I have time, I'll do what's nice, right? And then you have to get your partner or your family, friends to support you in making this radical change, right? So, hey, I decided I'm going to work out and exercise 3 days a week, okay? So that means I may not be able to be the one getting you off to the bus in the morning. I'd have to be, my spouse or, your dad or your sibling, right? You may have to make that sacrifice. But then look at what you're also gaining, because now you're more centered. You're freer to be present with them when they come home from school because you've attended your own needs. I
Mm-hmm.
often tell people you can't pour from an empty well, and if you're constantly pouring out and never replenishing, you're going to run out and you become just this empty shell of a person walking around like the Walking Dead,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's what we're seeing a lot in healthcare. Healthcare workers are so burnt out right now. And I'm telling you, you can leave your job, but don't leave your profession. Find out what you loved about your profession and what changes can you make. It may be that maybe it's the wrong environment for you at the time, and that's a decision that you have to make. Maybe you need to change. I remember when I was working in management, I was middle management and supervisor in a psychiatric unit. And that meant that I was evening shift. I was the only supervisor in the building. I covered the adult side, the adolescent side, the outpatient side, and the ER for any consults that they had, as well as any management concerns that happened. And I remember I went on a 2-week vacation. I was really exhausted. And I had my pager turned off. So I get ready to go back to work. I turn the pager back on, and they page me. And I'm instantly enraged. And I go into the building, and within 30 minutes of being in that building, I started having chest pain again. And that's when I realized, y'all are trying to kill me.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Y'all not gonna take me out with this stress because I was on call 24/7. You never really could get away. I would come in on the weekends to do payroll. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And so I decided right then and there I needed to make a change. So I went to PRN. I was like, put me in a PRN slot. I'll make just about the same amount of money. I know I'll work enough hours because I do the scheduling. And I did that and got another job. Well, because I was also in grad school at the time. So there was a lot of stress. I was in grad school working full time, and it was just constant up for clinicals, and then all day they come in and work an evening shift and staying up late to do papers and all this other stuff you had to do, and then sleep for a few hours and go back to clinical. It was just crazy time. And I remember thinking, I need to do something else. So when I graduated, I was a dual major, so I graduated with the first major, and I got my job in nursing education and as a staff educator in another place, and I worked at the other place PRN. So I stayed there for a while until I finished my second degree in graduate school and got my postmaster's. But yeah, I realized at that time that I was not going to let a job take me out. I was like, either I'm going to kill me because I'm doing this job, or I'm going to kill you for making this job. So it's time for me to go. And I realized that when I left, they hired 3 people to do my job.
Yep. Yeah. That's I just recently switched, and that's kind of where I was as well. It was just like, and I stayed in the company. I love the company that I work with. I stayed in the company that I work with, but I switched business units and roles, and it was one of those like, okay, but if you switch roles, who's going to do all this? And I'm like, I'll train whoever you want me to train to do the stuff that I do. And it it's been nice. My job is still stressful. I'm still stressed, but it's easier. It's easier to bear a little bit.
And you have to establish healthy boundaries, right?
Yeah.
Healthy boundaries. And I had to learn this as a business coach. I had to establish boundaries with my clients because I'm like, oh yeah, call me anytime you want. Yeah, well, okay, that kind of gets old, right? I have to establish healthy boundaries. And so that's so very important for me to do that. And even in my clinical work, I still, have to make sure I have those boundaries in place. Because if we don't, we'll take on all that stress from other people. And it may be that, you get an extra assignment and you have to say, I would love to take on that assignment, but right now my plate is full.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a priority? Do you want to pull me off of this assignment in order to replace it? You know, and oftentimes people don't realize how much they're piling on you because they're like, well, you can get it done because you're phenomenal and you do all this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
so you can do even more. And so it's kind of like a performance punishment, and you have to have those boundaries to say, you know what, my plate is full. And I had to do that myself and say, you know, I can't take on this extra role. I can't sit on this board. Thank you for inviting me, but I can't at this time. It's
Mm-hmm.
not, I can't ever, but I can't right now.
Yeah.
And feeling okay with that.
Yeah. It's hard to feel okay with that sometimes, but you'll never feel okay with it if you don't practice it.
It takes practice. It does take practice. And I always tell people self care is not selfish.
Mm-hmm.
It is actually the most selfless thing you can do, right? Because if you're taking care of yourself, then you have more capacity to help take care of others. But if you're neglecting yourself, you don't have that capacity to take care of others. And what happens? You start building up resentment. That causes more stress. You get angry. You might lash out. You may destroy relationships because you've not dealt with the stress. And so you just keep piling on yourself because you feel like you should. And they think, well, you keep saying yes, so why not, you know? So you have to have that healthy boundary.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up kind of your business coaching because, like I mentioned in your bio, you have the Nurse Shark Academy and you coach nurses to launch and scale their businesses. So you being an entrepreneur and also coaching entrepreneurs, how does stress impact an entrepreneur and what is some advice you offer to help them maintain the stress of that effectively?
I always say, because when you move from being an employee to an entrepreneur, it's like a whole big new world.
Mm-hmm.
Because now everything is dependent on you. The trash needs to be emptied. If you don't have employees, guess what? That's you. The floor needs to be mopped, right? So knowing that there's going to be times when there's ups and downs in your business. There's going to be times where everything's working well and then times when they're not working so well. How do you weather those storms? And so I look at, okay, are those tasks that you have in front of you, is it something that you have to do? Is there something only you can do? Like, I am the host of the podcast, right? So I have to do that, right? But do I need to take out the trash? No. Do I need to type the letter? No. So I outsource that. I hire someone to do that for me. And so you look at those different things that maybe you need to outsource to make your life easier.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that you can either automate or outsource, right? So that you can focus on the core things that you need to do to maintain and structure your business. I had a friend who has a very successful nurse staffing agency. And she came and asked for a little bit of advice. And I said, well, one of the things I said, you need to stop doing is working all the shifts yourself. If there was a call in or somebody didn't show up for a shift, she'd go work the shift.
Mm-hmm.
I said, how are you going to run the company if you're on the floor working the shift? How are you going to grow? Because you told me you wanted to open up another franchise in Kentucky. You know, you're in Indiana. I said, you need to hire somebody that you trust to run the Kentucky franchise that you can oversee,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you can't be in Indiana and in Kentucky and over here working a shift. I said, you're going to burn yourself out. So you need to put in place processes and systems and get the right people in place so that you can grow. And that's one of the things I teach. So that's what we talk about is make sure you get the good foundation going first. And then how do you put those processes and systems so that your business can grow and thereby reducing your stress?
Yeah.
Right? If you started off right, then you don't have to worry about that stressor when state walks in. You're already prepared, right? Your state comes in for your evaluation, you have all your stuff ready to go. But if you're scrambling the night before, you're scrambling when they're in the building, that's going to cause even more stress. So being prepared, prepping. And one of the things I like to do is prep for my podcast and my broadcast. So I like to prep ahead of time. So I put on the calendar, because if I don't, I'll forget to do it. Podcast prep. And I block 2 or 3 hours for that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know I've got to go through and do the promo, get the emails ready, get it up on the server, do all those different things, get ready for the promotions,
Oh, yeah.
And so Yeah, so I put that purposely on the calendar. Hey, this is when you need to get this done because it goes live on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to have it done. And so, those things that you can put in place to help you get things done and keep on track. And so, very brief, good example with my other business before we closed. We had a CNA training school, and one of the things I implemented was an electronic timekeeping system.
Mm-hmm.
It was just so much easier. It's like, go in, clock in when you're in, clock out when you're gone. That way, at the end of the year, I have all your clock in and clocks out. I know what your hours are. I know what your pay is. It's easy. Do it. Let's not put it on paper anymore. So it was a system that was easy to put in place that I still use. I use it for all my billing. I put my clock in. I know when I'm working for whom, and I can manage my time. And it makes it so much easier for me. Come tax time, I just run a report. Boom, I have it. I'm not pulling my hair out doing manual calculations because, all this stuff that I had to do with the other business. And so I learned those quick ways of managing my time and making it easier and streamlining my processes and putting those things in place. So that's what I teach a lot of my clients. Let's put this in place. Let's put a system together. And that way it'll run smoother. And so if there's a bump, right, it's a whole lot better for you to make an adjustment because you already have the process there laid down. You don't have to go back and break it all down and reinvent the wheel. I had a client come in and say, I want to open up a new franchise here, a new satellite office here in Anderson. She was from Indianapolis. I said, okay, great. I need you to find me somebody to run the office. I said, no problem. What's your job description? And I got a list of duties. I said, that's not a job description. Okay. Well, where's your training manual? How do you onboard them? No, didn't have any of that. I said, but you got a home care agency. How do you train your staff? Because the person is going to have to be you in this other office and need to train the staff. Crickets.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I had the epiphany. Okay, if I'm going to help people, my niche is to help you get started the right way with the foundations in place, doing things that you don't like to do, like your business plan, systems, and processes, right? We talk about the business plan as a plan for your business. It's a living document. It's not some dusty document that you hand to a banker and throw it in your drawer. No, it's a living document. And we use it as a tool so that you know where you're going in your business and how you meet your goals and targets, just like writing a nursing care plan. And I tell my nurses, if you can write a care plan, you can write a business plan.
It's the care plan for your business.
It is. It really is. And it makes sense. I said, you have to have measurable goals, outcomes, and a strategy to get to where you want to go. And that's what we do.
Yeah. That's really neat. And I'm honestly glad to hear another podcaster say, like, I block out a couple of hours to make sure that this, because that's exactly what I do. I have different times during the week blocked out on my calendar where I'm like, okay, this day I'm going to prepare the next 3 podcast episodes that are going to come out. This day I'm going to prepare the next 20 social media posts that I'm going to need to do to support those episodes or whatever it is. So I've got a lot of different times blocked out, but I don't think people realize how much work it is to have a podcast. It's a lot.
It's a lot of work. And I enjoy it because I get to talk to nurses and do all kinds of things.
Yeah.
But I honestly never thought of being a podcaster until like a few years ago. And it was really crazy. I was having this conversation with my mom and I said, I took radio broadcasting in high school and college, and I had a radio show. I was a DJ, and I was used to be behind a mic and a camera and all this stuff. And I said, I think that was good training for what I'm doing now. And I didn't even realize it then that those skills would come back. I just took it because I had nothing else to take. I'd taken everything in school, nothing else fit into my schedule. So I took radio broadcasting, which my mom did not like because she was in the radio business. And she did not want me to be in the radio business. And I said, she was radio TV. Um, and I said, no, but I really enjoyed that. And it was just fun. And I got to talk for a living. I was like, I like that. And listen to music that I liked because I played the music that I liked. And now I get to talk to people for fun.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
It's really neat. It is a lot of work, but I learn something every single week. Like, I learn something new. I get to talk to really cool people like you, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, I love it. And, you know, I was a big listener of podcasts. So I listened to podcasts, and I had some that I followed. And I don't even know how I got started listening I listened to Nick Loper's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even know how I got started with the Side Hustle Nation. I honestly don't know. It just popped up, and then I got it. That's how I got on Podbean, and I've had it, you know, the app for a while, and that's where I use my podcasting from.
Yeah.
They're paying me to say that, but I just, you know, throwing it out there. But that's how I got interested in podcasts, was because of him. And I was listening to him tell stories and meeting people who did different things as an entrepreneur. And I got to thinking, I said, I want to talk to nurses who are doing things as an entrepreneur. So I micro niche down. I talk to nurses. Well, I'm a nurse. That's who I want to talk to anyway, right? So I like talking to nurses. Those are my people. And so I meet all these fascinating nurses that are doing so many cool things. I met a nurse that her son had cardiac issues. So she became a cardiac nurse. And now she sits on national organizations and associations making policy.
That's cool.
I'm like, just wow. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really neat. What role does spirituality play in your approach to stress management, and especially because you are also an evangelist and a pastor? So what role does spirituality play, if any, in stress management to you?
For me, and for many people that have a spiritual religious background, it's a part of connecting to something bigger than yourself. It's tapping into the divine. And for me, it's bringing in the kingdom principles that God has laid out for us in my faith belief. And because of that, I recognize that He's given me the ability to do the things that I do, and that I have to do something with the gifts that He's given me, the talents that He's given me. It's not just for me to sit here and say, oh, I got all this great stuff and I can do it. Yeah, no, it's for me to share and give out to other people. And I choose to do that through the marketplace. And for me, when I'm feeling that stress, I turn to prayer and meditation. And I'll put on worship music. And when I was working that job, that stressful management job, I had a particular song that I would play, Shackles, and by Mary Mary. And my staff knew that if they heard Shackles playing in my office, leave me alone. Really upset because something's going on. But yeah, I would use music as a way for me to connect with myself and to tap into what God is doing for me. And so it's a way of refreshing as well. And then connecting with others. You know, a lot of times people look at spirituality as an individual thing, but it's also that connection you have with other people. There's something about being together in an experience. I remember in nursing school, we went to Washington, D.C. on a missions trip, and it was around Easter time, and we got to go to Easter service at the National Cathedral. And I've never done this before, but this is the first time I ever had communion with a communal cup. Now, this is all pre-COVID, okay?
Yeah.
So I'm there with, I don't know, 1,000 people or so. And the priests are there handing out Holy Communion. And there's like 2 or 3 of them, but they all have like one cup. And then you take your sip and they return it. And the other person will take their sip and they return it. To me, that was such a profound act of being together with a group of like believers and community. And so for me, that spirituality is fostering that sense of community. We were never meant to do life alone. And I think people forget that. And
Mm-hmm.
so you can find that community wherever you are and connect with people that are with. That's why, as we go back to cults, that's why cults are so powerful, because of that community. And I think if you don't have that void filled in your life, that's what leaves you vulnerable to getting taken advantage of and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. But finding that like group of people, your tribe, your folks, that community connects you. So it's not just connecting to the divine, but that connection also with other people is so
Mm-hmm.
powerful and so renewing, because you realize you're not alone. That's one of the reasons why I created the Nurse Shark Academy, to make that community for nurses, to let them know you're not doing this alone. You don't have to be out there starting your business by yourself. Come and join a community to help you with that. And that's all part of that spiritual piece, because a lot of that um, integrates into everything that I do. That spirituality is so important. I actually do a spiritual renewal day for nurses.
Oh, that's cool.
I started that because I found out that the suicide rate for nurses after COVID doubled.
Oh, wow.
And I reported on the news show, but I thought, I can't just report this. I've got to do something about it. And even if I just help one person, it was worth it. And so
Yeah.
every year I do a spiritual renewal for nurses.
That's really cool. I like that is an option. It's not something that you would find in. You're going to find a spiritual renewal for proposal managers.
I don't
But
know if you want one, we can put it together.
we probably could. And it that just turns into like, let's go to the bar and forget what we do. forget our stress of the day. But yeah, I mean, that community and that connection is really important. And regardless of what your beliefs are, there's a way to connect with people who have similar beliefs. And, if religion isn't your thing, that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't find community and connection in something that you do enjoy. So it's neat that you have, options for people who do believe the same way and who are able to connect in that way. And they do the same thing. Like that's, a lot of the time you go to church and it's like you're sitting there with maybe a neighbor, but you don't do the same thing as they do. So I think having that extra piece of connection's got to be really cool too.
It is. It is. I'm a parish nurse as well, so a nurse that works in the church. And one of the best things was we had a parish nurse conference, right? And it was at a Christian university, and we got a chance to have a worship service. But we also brought in a comedian. And
Oh,
it's nice to have a nurse comedian, because we can do all the stuff and talk about all the things and laugh about the things that hurt us, right? Without the stress of the patients in the room.
mm-hmm.
We have gallows humor. Nurses' humor can be very dark, okay?
Yeah.
Um, Not for the ears of patients, and they don't understand. That's why these nurses got in trouble at this. I don't know if you heard about this, but a bunch of nurses were doing TikToks and saying what their icks were on a labor and delivery unit.
Oh, yes. I did hear about that. Yeah.
Yeah, probably not a good idea. So nurses, if you're listening, don't do that.
Yeah, no.
Instead, I'm going to say go to a good comedy show. um, get with a group of your colleagues away from the hospital, the office, and talk there. But don't put it on social media. People don't understand. They just think you're making fun of them, and it's not just that. It's you're talking about the frustrations of your day, and some things are
Yeah.
just not for everyone to hear.
Yeah. And
Although they did go viral.
you can go viral for the really wrong reasons. But I mean, I think also, yeah, don't post your shit on social media if you're going to be talking about patients, especially in some of those cases. It was like a very identifiable thing for who they were talking about, and that part of the thing that got them in hot water, from what I understand, is that some of it was identifiable. So like that's a huge no-no in healthcare.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's great nurse comedians out there that make fun of the
Yes.
things that happen in healthcare, and I love them, like Z-Dog MD and Nurse John and Nurse Blake. I love all of them, right? But you don't sit there at work with your name tag on.
No.
talking about your icks, and you might be talking about the patient that's right down the hallway, and like I said, I feel for them because I know that they were just participating in what seemed like a fun, harmless activity. And again, we have gallows humor. There's a whole Facebook group that's all about dark nurse humor. And if you're not a nurse, you should not be in that group. And they're starting to gatekeep really well.
Yeah.
Because people would get offended. And I'm like, if this is the place to do it, it's a private group, not sharing it all on social media, though you really still need to be careful what you put in a private group because some of them aren't so private.
It can still get shared. Yep, that's true.
So those, so I try to include humor into a lot of things that I do, and I love to laugh. And my favorite thing is to watch cat videos on TikTok. Instagram, and I can do that for hours. Cats and dogs and babies, and I'll do that before I go to sleep, and it just makes me laugh because it's just so funny. I just love that, and so find things that bring you happiness, bring you joy. Do more of that. Do less of the other stuff. If it's not bringing you happiness, why are you doing it? I mean, there's things that are necessary. You have to get up and feed the kids, or CPS or DCS will be at your door.
True.
Right? Or they'll starve to death. But do you have to be the one to pour the cereal? I mean, are they old enough to pour it themselves? Do you have to be the one to clean up their room? They're a teenager and their room is piles of junk in it. I'm like, just shut the door. Let them live in their own filth. As long as nothing's growing and walking out of there, you're okay. Eventually, it's that type of thing. So pick your battles.
Yeah.
Is it worth getting stressed about? And sometimes, and most of the time, it's not. It's really not worth getting stressed about. So I have 5 nieces and nephews, and they're all grown now. So now I have 9 great nieces and nephews.
Aww, that's awesome.
So I'm kind of dating myself here. And so I've seen it all. Fortunately, I just send them back to their mom and their grandma. I'm like, I get to be the cool aunt, and and then sometimes I'm the mean aunt, but I'm like, I'm not letting you get away with stuff. So my nephew the other day, was it aggravating aunt? We were talking, I was driving the kids all somewhere, and my nephew was with us, and my kids were talking about mean mom, because sometimes if they get on my nerves where I have to bust out the mean voice, then I'm mean mom, and it's a very specific voice that I have, because then it lets them know, like your song, it lets them know, like, enough. I'm one more thing and we're done. And so my nephew was talking about, it was like aggravated aunt or annoying aunt. Maybe it was annoying aunt, I don't remember. But well, my nephew told me I was nothing but a big kid.
Well, you can be, right? When they're not your kids, you can absolutely just be a kid with them.
Let's just have some fun. He's very interesting. He's just like, I just can't believe that some of the stuff you do. It's like, I like having fun. I don't know why you're the big stick in the mud. It can be. You don't want that side.
Yeah. In your experience, how has stress management evolved over the years? I mean, there's all these emerging trends and practices. So what do you see coming? And then also, what do you find particularly effective that maybe wasn't even a consideration a few years ago?
Well, I say one thing is that we actually acknowledge it. I remember with the Olympics and Simone Biles deciding that she wasn't going to continue to compete because she had the twisties or the bendies or whatever she called it. And it was a mental thing, right? Her mental health's important. She can't compete like that, or she could get hurt and injured.
Yeah.
And everybody was talking about how so brave it was for her to do that. And it was. I'm not negating that. But what fascinates me is that we can have a conversation now.
Mm-hmm.
And people are all on the burnout. It's like the big buzzword. Everybody's talking about burnout, burnout, burnout. But we still have such a big stigma.
Mm-hmm.
This is the other thing. I just read an article on Medscape about a physician that was becoming depressed. He was really burnt out. He'd worked for this particular organization for numerous years. Went to his doctor. His doctor said, "Hey, you need to take some time off." So he went and asked for a month off. He said, "Hey, my doctor's putting me off for a month. I've had a lot of stress, blah, blah, blah." They fired him.
Oh, no.
And this is why physicians and other healthcare professionals don't talk about their stress,
Right.
is because now it can be, you could be retaliated against. But some of that's starting to change.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that's starting to change, and we're seeing more acknowledgement of it. So there's a lot of research around the phenomena of burnout right now. And there's some great articles have just come out about it. But I think the fact that we are even acknowledging it and then saying, okay, this needs to change. Now, what also needs to change is we really need to stop victim blaming. Say, well, you're burned out because, your life is crazy and you choose to live this life this way. No. There's a lot that happened during this pandemic, and it was already tenuous at best before the pandemic, and now we have this happen. And so what we haven't done a good job in healthcare is making systemic changes to address the problems that caused the burnout in the first place, like understaffing, stagnant wages, having to do more with less. I mean, I don't know if you all are aware, but there are so many medications right now that are on back order. We literally cannot get the medication for the patients. They've been on it for a long time. They've been stable on their meds. We can't get it because it's not available. That causes stress on the patient. It causes stress on the provider because you really want to help, but you can't. You have to find something else that might work but may not be as effective, but or a lower dose or a higher dose that may have more side effects to work around this problem of medications just not being available. And that's a big issue, and that puts on stress, which leads to burnout and moral distress and caregivers and nurses and doctors and others. So it's a lot bigger than just the individual. There's systemic changes that need to happen. The environment itself, there are so many nurses and doctors that are leaving the profession. They're just like, I'm done. I'm out. This is it. I just read an article today about 3 nurses. One nurse became a farmer. Another nurse became a wellness coach. And what did the other nurse do? I forget what she did, but they just left nursing altogether and did something different. They're like, we're done, we're out. No, we're not going back to do that. And so you have and we haven't even gotten into the economic stressors. So there's a lot we can unpack with all of that. But I think what's changing is that we're actually willing to talk about it. We haven't really gotten up to putting in solutions yet, but at least we're talking about it, because before our solutions were just take a few days off and come back and get right back into the same mess you were just in. And we're not recognizing that people have a breaking point. And what happened during COVID, the world stopped. And then people were able to catch their breath and look around and said, why am I doing this? Why am I living this way? And we started working from home as much as we could and all this other stuff. And then now they're wanting to force you back into that same mode pre-COVID, and people aren't willing to go back. And it's tough. It's hard. I get it.
I don't remember where I heard this, but I heard something the other day that was talking about what COVID did and the fact that so many people got to see what their life should be like were it not for the pressures that are put on everyone in general. Not just, oh, this is your stressful job, but just here in America, we have this culture that you have to not only make sure you're always hustling, but you have to always be productive. And it's like, well, what if I want to just wake up and bake some bread today? You know, like why can't I do that on a regular basis? And you're right. You know, everyone's forcing people to go back to the office and stuff. And that's going to be a hard pill. That's going to be a hard pill to make people swallow, I think.
Well, I think we need to adjust our expectations. And how does work look? Because one thing that happened with me with COVID is I started baking. Like, I really like to bake and I missed baking. And so I said, well, I'm going to make sure that I put time in for me to bake. Well, then it became, wait a minute, I like to bake, but now I got all this stuff. What am I going to do with it? Because I can't eat it all. So then I said, okay, so we're going to have to cut back on the baking and do it, you know, and give it away or do something else. But it just, I got into a rhythm of actually being more productive during COVID. And so now I want to keep that level of productivity. And productivity means different things to different people.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we think of productivity as, you know, turning out work and making dollars. But for me, that productivity was being able to sit down and go out to dinner or have a dinner with my husband, or we played Monopoly. We sat down and because no movie theaters, all that stuff were closed, and if we didn't want to watch it on TV, we played board games and talked to each other. That was very productive.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying that we need to redefine what productivity looks like because it's not just selling more widgets.
Yep, right? Absolutely. Yeah, sometimes it is baking, right? Like that's still being productive. I think it's easy to discount that and say, well, you like to bake, therefore you're not being productive, you're doing something that you like. But that is still being productive. You're just not making someone else money.
It's self-care, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I got my workout in today. I'm very proud of that, by the way. I went a little bit longer. I was like, yes, I'll push myself a little bit more. I got my workout because to me, that's being productive. Yes. I got that one thing that I had on my calendar to do. I got it done.
Yeah. Well, it is time for the magic moment of the stream. So viewers who've been here before, you know that means we're getting ready to wrap up. So if you have any questions for Tina, feel free to pop them into the chat. If you have anything you haven't asked or that we haven't addressed, feel free to go ahead and pop those in and we'll get them asked. And while folks are doing that, I have this magic wand here and it's beautiful and it's magical. And if you, Tina, could wave this magic wand and eliminate one common opinion or misconception or theory surrounding mental health, illness, disabilities, or just talking about mental health in general, what would it be?
I think that I would change the idea that mental health or mental illness is a personal flaw or a character flaw. It is a disease. It is an illness that's treatable. We just have to do it the right way and in a more productive way.
Yeah, absolutely. I did want to ask one question from one of our viewers that she sent in ahead of time, and that is, what is your favorite poem?
Favorite poem? I think it would be Maya Angelou's Phenomenal Woman.
I'm looking that one up right now. I don't think we've had anyone say that one. We've had someone bring up some things by Maya Angelou before, but not that particular one. So I'll post a link to that in the chat for everyone to go and enjoy. Frost says lovely wording on that for what you would change. Absolutely, I agree. Well, Tina, I'll turn it over to you and say if there's anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to talk about or anything you want to throw out there as far as resources or, connection points. I'll post your links again in chat real quick, but I'll just give you the floor for a minute.
Yeah, so I do have a workbook that I have for my, that I call Embracing the Wonderful You. And if I remember correctly, and I sent it to you, so
yes,
if it's wrong, you can correct it. But if your users or listeners would like to have it, they can use the promo code EMBRACE and get that for free. And it's just my way of saying thank you for listening. And it'll walk you through a breathing exercise and some other things to kind of help you get your self-care started for yourself. So that's my wellness gift to you.
That's awesome. I'm glad you brought that up because I had completely forgotten. I just posted the link to that. Use that coupon code. It is Embrace. So use that coupon code to get a free copy. And yeah, I really appreciate you providing that to the folks who are here and to those who are going to listen once this is out on the podcast platforms. It's really cool. I downloaded it. It's really neat. It looks it's beautiful, first of all. And then it also seems like it's going to really help you walk through. It walks you through very well. So yes. That's good. Okay, well, thank you so much, Tina, for your time today. And I appreciate this has been a beautiful, beautiful conversation. I just appreciate it. Wasn't that conversation with Tina absolutely fantastic? I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Stress, resilience, and a sprinkle of humor is what Even Tacos Fall Apart is all about. Now, as we wrap up today's episode, I want to share a little reflection. Life can sometimes throw serious challenges our way, and stress is that uninvited guest who just won't leave. But talking about it, finding common ground, and sharing our stories, that's how we navigate this wild ride together. Tina's insights on stress management were not just eye-opening, but downright empowering. From acknowledging the systemic issues to redefining productivity, there's a lot we can take away. And don't forget about the free ebook she's offering, Embracing the Wonderful You. To snag your copy, you can click the link in the description, or you can head over to the tacosfallapart.com website and use the search feature to find Tina Baxter's guest page with the link. Now, if you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and maybe even drop a review. Your support and engagement means the world to me, and it helps more folks discover the podcast. Remember, even when life feels like a plate of messy tacos, there's beauty in that chaos. Embrace it, learn from it, and keep on savoring those delicious, albeit slightly falling apart tacos. Thank you for being part of the Even Tacos Fall Apart and FoxFam community on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Discord, and more places. I can't even name all of them. If you're looking to connect in with our community, visit that tacosfallapart.com website and go to the Contact Me page, and that'll get you all the links. I appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time, take care of yourselves and find joy in the little things. Keep loving those imperfect tacos and each other.